circuits that act as if they're keys on the keyboard. So you can find anything online, like there's a Mario game that responds to the keyboard, but then you can use anything in the world that's conductive, make a circuit, and then use that to control the things on there. I think it's part of our overall view of trying to see the world as a construction kit. We want people to think about taking things from their everyday world and making things from it. So here they're making interface devices to things on the computer. That's Jay and Eric who developed this. So again, in each of these, it's getting kids are sort of creating these interfaces for the things on the screen, and then sometimes we'll use this along with Scratch. So they're both developing the physical interface and developing the project that's being controlled by it.
And adults are doing this too. I had a friend in college who rewired a car so that the horn or blinker actually went to the horn.
Yeah.
And,
so people are doing all sorts of creative things with it. So I think a big part of what we think about is how can we provide the right set of building blocks that unleash people's creativity? How to give enough structure that's going to support them in doing interesting things, but not so much constraints that it's focused in on just doing the things that we already have thought about. So with all the things we do, whether it's Makey or Scratch or the robotics kits that we do, it's always thinking about those things.
When you started, you said that to take what kids are doing in kindergarten, that type of learning, and bring it up to adults. Do you have anything for adults?
Well, as you were just saying, adults use this as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's an adult. He uses Scratch to create a card for his mother.
I do think in our group, a lot of the things that we do can be used by adults, although it's true that in our group we put a special focus on, a lot of the work we've done has been on sort of, up to college age, partly because we think it's especially important to have kids develop as creative thinkers, and also we enjoy working with people that age.
Well, what I'm thinking about is at my office.
Yeah.
I mean, we have these real problems, and we have all these constraints, and we don't have a lot of time because everything has to get done, but we really would like to do it smarter and better. And it would be really great to have tools, like I said before, with the interface with Excel, something that we could work with as a team. If you give me this piece or whatever, I know how to work this piece and put it together and do things much more smoothly and smarter.
Well, and I do think in a lot of workplaces, even if these tools can specifically address the problems that might be faced in the workplace, just sparking people to start to think more creatively, of starting to think of different options. I think we've done some workshops with adults, like we have sponsored companies that sponsor the Media Lab, and we'll sometimes do workshops for them that's just trying to get them to open up their minds to new possibilities. So even if it's a Scratch workshop or a robotics workshop, even if they aren't going to use those tools, is trying to get them to think differently about how they might look for new possibilities in the everyday situations that they follow. So I do think just having sort of a different way of thinking about approaching problems is important. And I do think there can be more things that other people could develop that give more tools that could fit in some particular situations. But we haven't focused so much on that.
How do you disseminate this? You just go around to a lot of schools and show them, or just really through word of mouth?
It's different for different things. So obviously for things like when we worked on the Lego robotics, then we're working with Lego, and Lego is, with Scratch, it's pretty grassroots word of mouth. So we have a website, but, again, we have zero marketing budget. So we put up the website. People find out about it, they read articles about it, they call us up to ask about it. We do have a companion website now. My former student, Karen Brennan, started a website called Scratch Ed, which is a website for educators who are using Scratch. So we started an online community for educators, and she's produced a draft curriculum guide for them to use. So we produced some materials and some support online community, but we're a relatively small group. We can't. We want this to be used around the world. More than half of the visits to the Scratch website are from outside the United States. So we can't do so much, and we're more trying to give the infrastructure and support other people for doing more. For like one example, again, this time that Karen started, every May we have what we call Scratch Day. And we pick one day in May where we encourage people around the world to run Scratch workshops. So we run one here at MIT, but the bigger part is we have a website where people can register their Scratch Day workshops. And last year there were more than 150 workshops in more than 40 countries. So all we did was we put up a website and a map and examples of what we were doing, and then other people created their own workshops and other materials. Yeah.
I have a question. It's a little bit different, but it's related when you were talking about Lego. I mean, you know there's Lego movies coming out, and do you ever try to partner, I come from the media business, do you ever try to partner with major studios or stuff like that, if that's an opportunity to kind of get interest in the kinds of work you're doing?
Yeah. Well, actually, one thing we're thinking about right now, so in our Scratch software, it's not actually we're trying to think about, in our Scratch software, it has a number of characters that come with it. We designed, we had illustrators work with us. And we've sometimes thought, would we want to have characters from a major motion picture in Scratch? But we have some uncertainty about that because we don't want it to have a commercial feel to it. And partly some of the things that I think people, at least some parents and some teachers value in Scratch is that it's a free piece of software from a university is something that is valued. And the more that it's, but on the other hand, if it sort of connects with kids' interest, that's a positive thing.
I was thinking more on the positive side.
Yeah.
They would be the studios, I think, are very supportive of trying, and also with the Coalition for Quality Children's Media.
Yeah.
They're very supportive of trying to find ways to, encourage the kind of efforts you're doing.
Somewhat supportive.
Somewhat.
Because remember, what we're doing is taking their licensed assets, and kids do all sorts of crazy things with their licensed assets, or, their copyright assets. So a lot of times they're not happy with what we're doing, because if someone if on the Scratch website someone can take a picture of Bart Simpson and have him do all sorts of crazy things, and so they're not always so happy with allowing people to do whatever they want with their licensed characters. So it's a tricky balance. I think one thing. So we're still sorting out ways of doing that.
I know that a number of them really are interested in supporting this
Yeah.
kind of educational efforts
Yeah.
that come out of that. They don't want to just be seen as being, taking advantage of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
marketplace and teaching
Yeah.
kids better.
Well, I think we'd be open to exploring it. Like one thing we've thought about is, even if it's not on the Scratch website, we can imagine sort of having our technology used on their website. So when they're promoting something, they could let kids make animated stories with their characters and things like that. So those are types of partnerships we've thought about, but we haven't really pursued. We've investigated a little bit, but not so much. But even with one that is the commercial that we've thought about putting Lego characters in here. So now I'll share a story that I hesitate to share because I have a great relationship with Lego, and I think the highest. Lego's a wonderful, wonderful company, and I value them very. And they do, they've really, their view of education. But right now we want to put Lego minifigs, and we were thinking about putting Lego minifigs in the next version of Scratch.
What's a minifig?
Miniature Lego characters, and there's sort of graphical minifigs that you could put in. It turns out right now that in the new guidelines for Lego minifigs, for all the new minifigs, every female minifig must have red lips, must be shown as if they're on red lips, which is outrageous. So we wouldn't use, so even companies that we really value, they make some decisions which we wouldn't want to be supporting. So this is one where, since we have a good avenue into the company, we talked to the chief executive of the company, and it wasn't his thought. I said, "That's crazy that it's other people made those decisions." So they're now rethinking that.
So they're responsive to it.
Yeah, they're responsive to it, but it's.
But see, that's where your partnership, it's sort of a yin and a yang, is that they can help you expand your reach out to people with the kinds of programming you're doing.
Well, if you have suggestions of possible partnerships, we're open to it. We want to be cautious about it just to make sure that it's.
No, the organization I work with is very.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you have ideas, we'd be happy to explore this again. I do think citizen could be helpful. And we do want to try to. I think we need, for us to make a bigger impact, we need more partnerships because we're a small group, and I think we've done pretty well in a grassroots way, and we have millions of kids using it. But to really get to the next level, we need different types of partnerships, but ones that don't compromise our values and visions. So,
we can talk.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mitch.
Okay.
I have another question. Talking about the other spectrum, there's a lot of seniors who are interested in technology but very afraid of it. And it seems like some of these things that make it easier and more human, not friendly, might be a good idea to get a lot of seniors connected.
Actually, when I mentioned it at Harvard that they're using Scratch in the introductory computer science class, the people running that class have done some summer workshops for seniors. We haven't done it, but they've done it. They've been really happy with the results of it. So that's one thing that they find interesting. But I agree with you. I think it could be. So we haven't done it, but we've seen some others do it. And I agree with you. I think it could be.
Can I get some names from you later?
Yeah, I could let you know the people who are in charge of that.
When you started up the lab, was it difficult to get funding to support something like this?
Well, I'll tell the story with Scratch. I mean, so it's different for different projects, and I mean, it's always continuing to get funding is always a challenge. Right now, we've been very successful at getting funding from the National Science Foundation for Scratch, but we went through some dry periods. We got one grant from them, which helped us get started, and then we got a few turned down. But then, as Scratch became more successful, and they saw that it was having real impact in the world, then we got several more grants from the National Science Foundation. And we're looking for other types of support, because NSF will only support to a certain time, and as we want to try to get out to the world in more ways, we're always looking for different forms of support. So we're always looking for, both government support and private foundations and industry. So we look for a combination of everything. But it takes a lot of the effort to do it, but there's no revenue stream from projects we do like Scratch, so we have to continue to, and it needs a lot of support. So, and we certainly don't want advertising on the site, and putting up big banners about trying to get donations on the site doesn't seem right to us either. So, trying to figure out other ways.
What other projects are you working on in this territory?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now we're doing a lot of projects. They're building on the Scratch platform, but it's, students are doing everything from studying collaboration with Scratch and remixing with Scratch and understanding data through work with Scratch, looking at new forms of teacher professional development, but in the link with Scratch. Then we do a lot of things in the robotics area of connecting things to the physical world. So we still work with Lego in many ways and looking how we can do more things of combining the physical world and the virtual world. So the Makey is sort of in that spirit. And we're very connected to the maker movement because we're very much aligned. So there's a big effort now, so-called maker community of people of supporting makers. So there's a magazine called Make Magazine. There are events called Maker Fairs. They're very much aligned with the spirit of what we do. There's a new organization called the Maker Educator Initiative. So we've been participants and want to get even more involved because there is a lot of momentum around that. It's not just for education, but it's just sort of the do-it-yourself movement. So if you look online for Maker Fair or Make Magazine, you'll find lots of information. But we want to see how to sort of build on that spirit and that the culture around the maker community to bring that to educators. As with a lot of new initiatives like that, sometimes it's aimed more at expert hobbyists, and we want to see how we can take those ideas and make it more accessible to novices. A big role that I think we play is how we can take the more sophisticated new things happening in the world of technology and make it more accessible to a broad audience of people.
Who originally funded? Who gave you the grant to do this project?
National Science Foundation. Although we started before the NSF grant, we were interested enough in it that we just found whatever money we had, and we just used this. We did a very, very first early prototype before we had the NSF funding. The NSF funding is what really enabled us to move forward.
It's the only lab at MIT that gets non-company funding, right?
No. MIT.
I'm talking about the media lab, I misspoke.
No, the MIT gets more corporate funding than other universities.
No, but at the media lab, everybody else gets only corporate funding, not the NSF, right?
No, there are other groups that have NSF funding. Like my colleague Ed Boyden gets lots of NSF funding, and yes, others.
Neuroengineering.
We heard at these TedX talks last night, a gentleman who's in the administration for the Department of Education. He's looking for ideas to revolutionary. He goes around the country. You might want to talk to him and show him what you're doing here, and maybe they could give you some funds to get this and get this out to different schools too.
Yeah. So again, I don't know who that was speaking last.
I'll connect you.
Department of Education.
Yeah. He came from the CIA.
Well, he used to work.
But it's also challenging. Again, I have no idea what he was doing. Yeah. The Department of Education, it's often challenging that these days they're very, very focused on literacy skills and math skills that can be tested by traditional standardized tests.
That's not what it sounded like this guy wanted.
Well, this guy was very different.
Very different. Yeah.
So I was trying to change just that.
Yeah. So that'd be great.
Do you find that this helps with or competes with that kind of stuff? With kind of the hard skills of,
I think it can contribute to it, but I don't think that you can then reliably say that even if Scratch is incredibly successful, I don't think I'd want to measure it by how well it does on the standardized tests, because I don't think the things you're mostly getting out of it is what's measured in the standardized tests.
Do you think we could completely replace traditional education with alternatives like that?
Depends on what you mean by totally replace. I mean, I would, if I was starting a school, I'd make it very, very different than traditional schools. But it depends on what you mean by traditionally replace. So I mean, I would make things very different. So.
But do you think it could completely be replaced? Is what I'm curious about.
What do you mean? I don't know what you mean by completely replaced. Do you mean never set foot in any institutional building? I don't know what you mean by it.
Sure.
So no, I don't think there's any. I mean, we start computer clubhouses. Those are institutional places where kids come. So I don't want to get away from places where kids come. So again, you'd have to say better what you mean by replace, because I think it's good for kids to come together and learn.
Traditional classroom.
It all depends on what you mean by traditional classroom. So again, I'd want to change lots of things about it. For me, I'd want to break down lots of boundaries. I wouldn't segregate kids by age. I wouldn't segregate disciplines the way that they're segregated now. I'd break down lots of boundaries. I'd break down the time periods. I wouldn't want people to things just go for an hour. So there are lots of things I'd change, but I would still bring kids together for learning. I'd still So
do you think there is enough educators who would be able to still teach the kids if you break all those constraints and do not provide the structures for the educators?
It changes the change of culture, but I think there are lots of people out. Over time, you need to change people's mindsets. So it's certainly possible to have lots of people who would support it. But we don't have a whole infrastructure of supporting people at Atlas that's not in the mainstream of the culture right now. But it certainly could work, but it's a major, major change. It's a big change over time. I think it is past 6 o'clock, and I think we sort of need to wrap up now. But I appreciate your coming, and it's nice chatting with you.